What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's market analysis or market recap session. And before we start, I want to say that this episode is going to be quite a special episode because I myself haven't looked at the markets much today at all. And the reason for that is let's take a look at financial juice and Forex Factor. Today we had CPI release and unemployment claims, which means that we stay flat today, so we avoid all choppy or untradeable price action. So we're gonna run through the market live with you guys, and we're gonna see if there's any potential trades that we could have found today, and note any findings from today as well from our recent news analysis. So let's dive straight in. Let's start with M&Q. Okay, so start with 4 hour like always. Let's start with daily just so you get an overall idea on the market, or even weekly, right? You've been seeing, like, long-term perspective, we've been seeing an overall uptrend, but look at what happened now. We broke major structure towards the downside, and it looks like we're gonna head towards these lows, right? But that cannot be heavily considered because a lot of this is to do with news, not simple price action. So that's where the daily comes into play as well, right? Let's mark out where 830 was today on 30-minute. 830 is right there. We do whatever is prior to that. Okay, so prior we had these lows. Let's see if there's anything below on the daily. So we do have this main liquidity level there, and that would be pretty amazing if we head to there. But on the daily, it does look like we made enough volume to reverse towards the upside for a while. But again, it's super hard to tell because all of this recent action has been because of news. We have, like, in my trading career, I have never seen something like this before. And that's all because of President Donald Trump. Now, just taking a look at the charts, yeah, we may or may not go down to these liquidity levels, but that's iffy as well because prior we just pumped up and we did place above that area, so we may consider going higher as well. It's essentially hard to tell because this one candle is a very, very large candle that is not typical. It's an 11% increase on MQ. That's quite insane. So now looking on the 4 hour, let's see what we did. We did make a double bottom here, which is quite a bullish sign, but we don't look at chart patterns without understanding overall context of the market. Chart patterns are just over exemplified price action, right? So on the 4 hour, we've seen this momentum towards the upside. I'm essentially looking to see if we can make a retracement within this area to see how we will react next, right? But then again, that's also quite iffy looking at this big upwards movement we had in the second half, or maybe end of first half of New York session, right? But from where we did open, we did have main liquidity up there. We had further main liquidity down at these lows. And of course, we had main liquidity at these lows. I'll mark this out as well because they're not quite touching, but just keep it like that. Now, everything does look bullish. We're making this is simple price action terminology, right? We're making higher lows in the market. And sorry, I shouldn't look over here, but we've made a higher low in the market followed by a crazy pump towards the upside, right? So I'm already expecting price potentially have a bullish upside. But it's hard to tell looking at how the extent towards which this bullish action occurred. But if we take a look at, it's something I don't really do, but let's do this for the time being just so we can get a good grasp on the market, right? Let's take this volume profile right there to see where our POE is. Okay, now I want to emphasize something to you guys, and this is very, very, very interesting, right? Over these past few days, where the market has been essentially moving up, down, up, down, up, down because of news, right? We got the pump up because of the original 90-day pause, which then got faked out because of the White House news and all that, faked out from there to there, and then it came back up and then fell again because of important economic news. And this pump was because of the official and announced 90-day news, which essentially caused all of that. Now, where was the main volume? Where was most of the volume traded within this time period? Most of the volume was traded at this level right here, and that is very, very essential to know, because just simply in terms of mean reversion, price wants to go to where the most volume has been traded, right? And looking at where we are at, the place for buyers and sellers will be in agreement is down here. So potentially we could see downside to there, but I'm not expecting a minus 10% move in a day as well. So it's hard to tell in that perspective as well. Additionally, we do have main liquidity at these highs. Moving down, we don't really see much. We see that I'm essentially looking to see if you have any key zones or really anything. Okay, so we do have a 2-hour demand zone down before the tariff news, and we have another 2-hour at the lows where liquidity is near. And that's essentially it. After yeah, not really much. We could consider this as a supply zone as well. If you look on the 1 hour, we just continue to go higher and higher. Yeah, just continue to go higher and higher, and then made a small retracement towards the downside, towards this key liquidity level, which we can mark out. And in the London session, or the session before New York session, we did happen to touch into these levels and make a reaction towards the upside, but price action is still looking quite towards the sell side if we pretend that the up move above it was a common up move and not this type of action. But then again, we have to just stay alert and see what we can find. On the 30-minute, yeah, not much on the 30-minute either. 15-minute, you could mark out this trend line right here just for extra confluence as needed, but there's that. And then you do have this. Then now we're on the 5-minute, where before price opened, we're just rallying. We opened, market opened with a bias towards the downside because mean reversion is below, and we've expanded towards the downside as well. But like I've kept mentioning, It's very, very hard to tell because of the current market situation and because of the large move we had yesterday. Now, just from that, let's go on to ES and see what we have there as well. I'll do this a lot quicker because I'm not trying to bore you guys. I did the main market analysis on NQ just so you guys get a basic understanding. I'm essentially going to speed run through the analysis on ES quite quickly so we can get on to looking at what trades we might have actually had. This is my time looking at the day today, CPI day, so that's why I'm taking my time with NQ. Typically, I want to explain this to you guys as well, but I can usually complete this pretty quickly. Alright, so marked out those liquidity levels. We do have a 3-hour supply zone there. And then I wouldn't consider that yet. No. Yeah. Next liquidity above, if we do break out of the highs, is there. On the 2-hour, we don't have much again. We do have this 2-hour demand zone. Same like NQ, we have two 2-hour demand zones right at these levels. Did not need to click that. And on the 1-hour, there's not much once again except this 2 level. Move on to 30-minute. See, not much once again. Same thing. Trend line. 15-minute. Not much again. These wicks before market open are quite choppy as well, although we are seeing motive towards the downside simply with price action. It's quite choppy while doing so too, as demonstrated by all these wicks. But at 7:30 was CPI, so that's understandable. And actually, I want to take a look at the CPI results because I'm trying to backtest something that may be viable. So let's take a look. Okay, CPI did come out negative, so CPI, unemployment claim, on forecast. It looks like CPI bought the market up and then down, but let's just mark out the liquidity levels from that CPI candle because it's good practice, and those tend to be very key levels. So we have that major one up there as identified by that. Let's just go on the 1 minute as well, just so we understand the move that happened at CPI. 7:30, we made a big pump up and then splurged back down. CPI caused the upwards movement and not downwards movement. Pardon me. Okay, so essentially ES is looking pretty much the same as NQ. Did that pretty quickly. And now finally let's take a look at the VIX, which you can do very quickly as well. Taking a look on the 30-minute. Okay, so 8:30 once again. Alright, prior to 8:30, we did essentially fill this gap, so it's hard to tell where we're gonna go. Depending on how we react to this area, depends on where we're gonna go next, but I personally do not see much confluence on VIX on this occasion. does look like we can continue down here, but this movement tends to require mean reversion. So let's take a look and see what trades we can find today, right? So on the 5 minute. Okay, we already opened up with quite a bit of choppiness, and this is gonna be a live order flow example video as well. So shout out to live Alex at Think with Bookmap once again. I pulled up his bookmap, and right at market opened, it looks like we tapped into liquidity above, and from that we made major sweep towards the downside, and now we're stalling between two liquidity levels. Actually quite a good amount of major liquidity levels. We have this key one right here, this one right here, and this one right here. But from what I see is that we potentially can go towards the downside because you use this as fuel to go down, and it came up newly. So this does look like a barrier, which means potentially price can go lower. And we have an introduction of sell sweeps, CVD is low, and yeah. If we take a look at the prior volume, prior to market open, it's likely going to be above. Yeah, we're right at this level, right? We're right at POC, which explains a lot of this choppy action. Okay. Let's keep going. I think we can head towards this downside. Take that liquidity. Looks like we've done just that. We came up to these levels, started chopping there, and then came, touched it, sucked it up, and now touching it again. Now seller icebergs are getting introduced at this level, so it does look like you can break it, but again, hard to tell. Okay, so we did break this level. Now at this time it's going to be 8:45 in the market, which is right here. There's nothing really that we can identify from there, but moving forward we do see this crazy expansion towards the downside. Potentially we can get a retracement off of that, and that's what I'm looking for right here. We do get close to retracement to V2. Let's see on the 1 minute if we go down and retrace up, or if we just go up. Okay, so we do go down and retrace up. So I would be much more confident waiting for something like that. So we're starting from 8:30, going to this area right here. We did come back to POC, right? So again, POC is proving itself useful once again. We're extended from POC. Let's just go to that area and see if that's valid. Yeah. Okay, that's very perfect, right? We push down from POC heavily, right? Now we're at this level, and POC is all the way up here. Now, when we see such price action like this that is breaking structure, should automatically be in a mindset that we're gonna head back to these retracement levels here, or even tap into POC depending on what bookmap prohibits. So let's skip forward to where it's 9:10 in the market. Okay, 9:10, it does look like we have liquidity level down here and down here as well. So let's take a look into how we perform there. Okay, it does look like we're coming back up, but there's not too much sign of any targets above, so we would not take any long on that perspective as well. But now would be a great time that I would be inclined towards shorting, because we're near VWAP and POC, and this looks to be our main liquidity that we need to target. Potentially a retracement play could be valid. Let's take a look into what time that retracement play would have been. 9:40, so let's skip forward to 9:40. I'm trying to essentially see if you have any barriers or any sign of confirmation for us to enter. Yeah, just by looking at Bookmap, I'm gonna be honest, there's not much confirmation on Bookmap at all. And on days like that, we do not trade at all. There's not really any barriers and no signals of confirmation that we personally use in our system. So you would not enter in market situations like that. But if you're simply looking at the charts, let's see if there's anything there. Not a single fair value gap before the end of our market session. There is fair value gaps, but we've never really retraced into one. We did create an IFEG right there, but we did not even target those highs. And looking at Bookmap, that looks to be this pump right here. No, not even that pump. There's a prior pump, and there was not really any sophistication in that for us to take a valid entry on. But let's look on ES as well and see if there's anything there, but I personally do not think there will be anything. Okay, ES looks quite exactly the same. Yeah, literally exactly the same as an NQ. Perhaps the volume profile can differ, but the volume profile is similar at the same place. But volume profile, point of control did seem to be the area where we came into and started seeing rejection to the downside. Potentially footprint could have shown us confirmation about any trade today, but then again, there is not much ideology in any of this. So today would have been a day to stay flat, even if today was CPI day. We would have stayed flat. Like, imagine if there was no CPI before and we saw these market conditions here, we would still stay flat because no confirmation presented itself, nor did any viable price action in terms of our strategy. Now, what could have been done in other strategies, for example, if you're doing a swing trade, is simply by looking at the current stance of the market, right? Let's take a look into what happened. We made this crazy pump right here, right? Typically, when we make such high pumps, what happens? We make a small retracement before going high. Not very occasionally do you see something where there's a big candle, then another big candle, then another big candle, another big candle, so and so and so, right? Especially on the daily chart. You don't really see multiple 10% up days in a row. Or so even be 5%, right? Typically when you see something like that where major news caused that to happen, we need to revert back towards the mean and go to an area where both buyers and sellers can be present in the long-term market so that the market can essentially be viable and hold itself up. Now if we move POC to current, yeah, it does look like we came up to this level, but this is a pretty good sign for tomorrow, right? It does still look like we can continue going down, I'm not gonna lie, but this demand zone could be a very, very important level, looking as how this was an area where the most volume was transacted, and this was high impact news liquidity, which is all very keen and bullish towards the upside. Let me just mark that out right here. 90-day tariff level. Alright. So what I'm expecting personally is that we may see continuation towards the downside, unless PPI tomorrow comes out very positive, which acts as a catalyst to move price up. But from what I see right here, price does seem that it wants to go lower and potentially take a sweep or touch into this liquidity or this demand zone, where we can make our way back towards the upside. Additionally, on Bookmap, we do have so much liquidity towards the downside, and I do believe that this level, it looks to be, let's see in the future where it is, 437 something area, right? So let's just take a look at that real quick. 437 something. 437. 437? 4375. 437. Okay, yeah, don't use this liquidity. We do have liquidity here though, which is 4975, and yeah, that's quite literally perfect, right? This is very long-term liquidity, and it's very expanded away, so I would just ignore that. But you do start seeing this to pop up right here, 260 orders just sitting at the liquidity right there, which shows that there are already buyers waiting there for a price to potentially tap into, place buy orders. And typically when we see something so early like that, it does tend to be high probability, which further exemplifies this idea that price will continue lower, get towards this key level down at these areas, and then potentially make it move back up or move back down depending on what happens at this level. I know a lot of people don't like using supply zones, demand zones, for value gaps and all that, but essentially all of this is just simplified price action. Our main edge is always order flow and confirmation, and any strategy in trading can be viable if under the right market conditions, with the proper risk management and the proper execution. So it's not a good idea to strategy shame anyone, but I hope today showed you that the V2 strategy is very powerful. We look for retracements in the market while leveraging order flow, supply zones, and use fair value gaps as a sense of an entry model for the retracements. That's essentially the simplified version, and that's essentially all I have here for this video. This video has gone out to be my longest video yet so far, because this was my time to recap and look over the market as well, and we did not find any viable trades while looking at Bookmap as well. In a realistic scenario, you should stay flat looking at the price action and orders on the market, and that's essentially all. CPI day should already be flat, but if it wasn't and you saw this action, you would probably be flat as well if you're a price action or order flow trader. And that's essentially it for you guys. That's all I have here for today, and I want to conclude this episode with that. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below or join the Discord. The link is in the description. Everything is completely free. We're just trying to build a great community where many individuals can join and learn and expand with one another. That's essentially all I have. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another market replay session, probably like this one because there is PPI, but I might trade as well. but I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Goodbye. I'll see you guys tomorrow.